In today's episode, we're looking at 5 people whose wilderness adventures ended tragically, from a solo hiker who encountered a deadly predator on a remote trail to a travel blogger whose one mistake turned fatal. But first, we start with a photographer whose pursuit of the perfect shot led to a deadly encounter. It was September 15, 2015, when tragedy struck in the remote northern Rockies backcountry of northern Montana, where climate shifts had devastated the region's natural food sources. An unusually warm summer followed by early frost had decimated berry crops across the drainage, while drought conditions reduced spawning fish populations to critically low levels. The area, typically rich with autumn feeding opportunities, now offered little sustenance for the wildlife that depended on seasonal abundance. Leighton Price, a 45-year-old freelance nature photographer, had established his camp 0.6 of a mile from a creek bend to document wildlife struggling through the harsh conditions. Price maintained a modest social media following of 4,200 subscribers, built through years of patient fieldwork, capturing nature's seasonal cycles. His methodical approach and extensive backcountry experience had brought him to this particular drainage, where he hoped to photograph bears in their natural habitat during the challenging autumn season. The area showed disturbing signs of food scarcity. Scattered scat deposits contained unusual materials, bark fragments, roots, and even small stones, indicating desperate foraging behavior. Large tracks pressed deep into the soft soil showed erratic movement patterns, with claw marks gouged into tree bark at unusual heights where bears had searched for any available food source. A backcountry ranger had noted concerning reports of aggressive bear behavior in nearby areas, attributing it to the severe food shortage affecting the region. During autumn, grizzly bears typically consume up to 20,000 calories daily to prepare for hibernation. When natural food sources fail, these massive omnivores face a biological crisis. Starvation triggers increasingly desperate and unpredictable behavior as bears venture into unusual areas and take extraordinary risks to find sustenance. A malnourished bear's judgment becomes impaired, making them far more likely to view humans as either threats to scarce resources or potential food sources themselves. At first light, on September 15th, Price moved along a game trail toward the creek, carrying his camera equipment and telephoto lens. Through his viewfinder, he spotted a severely undernourished grizzly foraging desperately along the creek bank, its ribs visible beneath a dull, patchy coat that indicated months of inadequate nutrition. Price positioned himself behind a fallen log, approximately 50 yards from the water, adjusting his camera settings to capture the bear's struggle for survival. The emaciated bear, significantly under its expected autumn weight, had been moving along recent human scent corridors near campsites, a pattern consistent with extreme food stress and opportunistic scavenging. As Price focused his lens and began photographing, the starving animal detected his presence. Rather than fleeing as a healthy bear might, the malnourished grizzly's desperation overrode normal avoidance instincts. The starving bear immediately fixated on Price's location. Rather than the typical bluff charge of a well-fed bear defending territory, this was the focused approach of an animal driven by starvation. The bear struck Price with devastating force, despite its weakened state, its desperation lending ferocity to the attack. Patterns at the site indicate the struggle moved across approximately 30 feet of terrain. Drag marks suggest the assault persisted long enough to create multiple impact zones in the gravel and disturbed vegetation. Blood spatter patterns and disturbed ground cover extended from the initial contact point across the rocky creek bank. Deep gouges in the soil and overturned stones marked the path of the encounter. The bear's tracks, showing an unsteady gait, remained visible in the soft earth around the scene. Claw marks on nearby trees indicated the animal had lingered in the area, continuing its desperate search for resources even after the encounter. Price's body was discovered 2 days later when he failed to make his scheduled satellite check-in. The scene revealed the attacking bear's severely compromised condition through scat deposits containing bark, roots, and other non-nutritive materials scattered throughout the immediate area. Investigators determined that Price died from massive trauma and blood loss consistent with a sustained grizzly attack, with injuries concentrated across the torso and head where the bear had made repeated contact. The incident highlighted how environmental factors can create dangerous conditions where starving wildlife becomes unpredictably aggressive, turning wildlife photography into a potentially fatal encounter. While Price met his fate in the mountain wilderness, hundreds of miles away, Amory Wilde, an outdoor enthusiast, was preparing for what would become an equally tragic encounter. It was July 8, 2018, in the mixed conifer backcountry of a northern mountain park, where dense understory creates a maze of limited visibility along winding trail networks. The area experiences low visitation during midweek periods, leaving hikers isolated for hours at a time. Thick stands of Douglas fir and lodgepole pine tower overhead, while tangled brush crowds the narrow tread, creating conditions where wildlife encounters can occur suddenly. The trail system spans over 40 miles of interconnected loops, with some sections remaining unmaintained for months during peak wildlife activity periods. Amory Wilde, 28, worked part-time at a local outdoor gear shop while building a modest adventure blog with 3,800 followers across social platforms. Known for organized route planning and mileage-focused content, Wilde had selected this particular loop trail to create a comprehensive guide for fellow hikers. The route promised solitude and scenic diversity, exactly what Wilde's audience sought in authentic wilderness experiences. Two experienced backpackers in their 30s had reported fresh bear sign on an adjacent spur trail just hours earlier, though this information never reached Wilde due to poor cell coverage in the area. During the outbound segment, Wilde documented extensive wildlife activity throughout the morning hours. Fresh tracks measuring over 5.5 inches across the forefoot were pressed deep into muddy sections of trail. Turned logs and scattered debris indicated recent foraging behavior along multiple sections. The evidence pointed to a large black bear actively using the corridor, though Wilde continued the planned route without adjusting safety protocols or carrying adequate deterrents for the return journey. Wilde had encountered a similar sign on previous solo trips without incident, which may have created a false sense of familiarity with the risks. Black bears typically avoid human contact through their acute senses of hearing and smell, often detecting humans from considerable distances and moving away before encounters occur. However, factors such as food scarcity, habitat pressure, or individual behavioral variations can occasionally lead to different responses. Adult male black bears, particularly during summer months when natural food sources may be limited, can exhibit more assertive behavior when defending resources or territory. These animals can weigh up to 400 pounds and possess surprising speed, capable of reaching 30 miles per hour in short bursts. Their powerful jaws and sharp claws are adaptations for foraging, climbing, and occasional intraspecies conflicts. On the return leg, Wilde encountered the bear on a narrow section where brush pressed tight against the trail tread. Physical evidence at the scene indicated the bear had been foraging in berry patches just off the trail when the encounter occurred. Disturbed vegetation and scattered scat suggested the animal had been feeding in the immediate area for some time. The narrow trail configuration and thick brush limited escape routes for both human and bear. Scuffed trekking pole marks in the soil showed Wilde had backed along the trail in short, staggered steps. The bear's tracks indicated it had initially moved parallel to the trail before turning toward Wilde's position. Deep toe impressions in the soft earth marked where the animal's gait changed from walking to a more rapid approach. The initial contact came as a bite to Wilde's thigh, the bear's teeth penetrating the femoral region. The force of the contact caused both to fall onto the downhill shoulder of the trail. Damage to major blood vessels in the leg resulted in rapid blood loss. The bear maintained contact, using its body weight against Wilde on the slope. Subsequent injuries occurred to the lower torso and the shoulder area. Snapped carbon segments from trekking poles scattered across the ground indicated Wilde's attempts at defense. Claw marks across clothing and pack straps, along with deep tissue damage, reflected the bear's natural defensive weapons during the struggle. The encounter continued until Wilde's movements ceased. The primary cause of death was blood loss from femoral vessel damage, compounded by severe trauma to soft tissues. The bear's behavior during the incident appeared consistent with an animal responding to a perceived threat in a confined space rather than planned predation. After the encounter ended, the bear moved the body a short distance before departing the immediate area. Large black bear tracks were found throughout the encounter site, overlaying Wilde's boot prints. Coarse black hair recovered from the surrounding brush confirmed species identification. Wilde's body was discovered the following morning, when a missed evening check-in prompted search efforts. The last GPS ping had registered mid-afternoon, providing investigators with a precise timeline. Wildlife officers immediately closed the trail system and initiated monitoring protocols for the area. The incident affected the local outdoor community, as fatal bear encounters remain statistically rare. Wild's family requested privacy while processing the sudden loss of their adventurous young relative. While Wild's tragic encounter shocked the hiking community, hundreds of miles away, wildlife researcher Della Reese was about to face an equally dangerous situation during what seemed like routine scientific work. It was October 3, 2019, along Alaska's remote coastal research territory, where salmon spawning channels carve through pristine wilderness. The area encompasses thousands of acres of temperate rainforest, with towering Sitka spruce and dense alder thickets creating natural corridors for wildlife movement. Gravel bars stretch along meandering creeks that serve as highways for migrating salmon and massive predators. Dr. Della Reese, 34, specialized in salmon population dynamics for a regional conservation organization. Her methodical approach and 5 years of field experience made her suited for solitary research work. Reese operated from a temporary field station positioned near major salmon-counting weirs, monitoring fish populations during peak migration periods. Her social media presence of 3,200 followers focused on educational content about marine ecosystems. Reese's research coincided with salmon spawning season, when thousands of fish crowd into shallow pools. This annual phenomenon transforms quiet waterways into feeding grounds that attract Alaska's most formidable predators. Her field notes documented increasing bear activity throughout the drainage system, with fresh tracks, scat deposits, and fish remains scattered along gravel bars. A regional field coordinator maintained regular radio contact with Reese, scheduling twice-daily check-ins. Recent station log entries recorded multiple bears using the same pools where Reese collected daily samples. Coastal brown bears represent the largest terrestrial carnivores in North America, with adult males exceeding 1,000 pounds. These massive omnivores gain hundreds of pounds during salmon runs to sustain themselves through winter hibernation. Their size is matched by surprising speed, capable of covering distances at 35 miles per hour. Equipped with 4-inch claws and bone-crushing jaws, coastal browns dominate any encounter. During salmon season, these bears focus intensely on high-calorie feeding opportunities. Prime fishing locations become areas where bears react strongly to unexpected disturbances. On October 3rd, Reese departed her field station carrying water sampling equipment. The half-mile route followed established game trails along the creek corridor. Dense alder stands provided excellent wildlife cover, creating blind spots where encounters could occur without warning. Reese reached the salmon pool and began routine data collection. Kneeling at the water's edge, she focused on counting fish and collecting samples while surrounded by splashing salmon sounds. The intensive work required sustained attention, leaving little opportunity for environmental awareness. A massive coastal brown bear had been fishing upstream throughout the morning. The animal moved downstream along the gravel bar system, following established patterns toward Reese's pool. Dense vegetation concealed the bear's approach until it rounded a creek bend, bringing predator and researcher into proximity at 30 feet. The thick alder cover, combined with the constant noise of salmon splashing, masked the sound of the bear's movement. The bear reacted immediately upon encountering the unexpected human presence. Startled by finding someone at its feeding location, the animal charged across the gravel bar. Reese looked up from her equipment as the bear reached her position, providing no opportunity for defensive measures. The initial impact struck Reese with tremendous force, the bear's massive shoulder driving into her torso and launching her backward into shallow water. The bear's jaws clamped down on her head and neck region. The crushing pressure of teeth designed to crack salmon bones caused immediate severe trauma to Reese's skull and upper spine. The bear maintained its grip while using body weight to press Reese into the creek bed. Powerful forelimbs with razor-sharp claws raked across her chest and abdomen, tearing through clothing and inflicting deep lacerations that exposed vital organs. The combination of crushing bite force and penetrating claw wounds created massive tissue damage. As the attack continued, Reese's position in shallow water became critical. Once incapacitated by head and spinal trauma, Reese's face-down position allowed creek water to enter her airway. The dual trauma of severe physical injuries and water inhalation proved rapidly fatal. Reese died from the combined effects of massive head trauma, spinal damage, and secondary drowning within minutes. The bear disengaged after the encounter, leaving clear evidence scattered across the gravel bar. Reese's research equipment lay throughout the impact zone, with her notebook showing entries made minutes before the attack. Reese's body was discovered the following day when she failed to make her scheduled radio check-in. Investigation revealed extensive bear activity throughout the sampling area, with tracks, scat deposits, and fish remains confirming regular use by large coastal browns. Hair samples recovered matched an adult male coastal brown bear. Wildlife management officials temporarily suspended research operations and implemented protocols requiring paired researchers in active bear habitat. The scientific community mourned the loss of a dedicated researcher whose work contributed significantly to salmon conservation efforts. As investigators concluded their work at the remote Alaskan research site, a completely different tragedy was already unfolding in the construction zones of British Columbia, where Canyon Ford would soon learn that wilderness predators recognize no boundaries between their domain and human industry. It was August 22, 2016, deep within British Columbia's interior wilderness, where ancient forests stretch across mountainous terrain, broken only by logging roads. The remote work site sat 15 miles from the nearest settlement, surrounded by dense stands of Douglas fir that had remained undisturbed for decades. Canyon Ford, 41, had spent 15 years operating heavy equipment for a mid-sized construction firm. His reputation for reliability made him the natural choice for solo operations in isolated locations. Ford had volunteered for this assignment, attracted by overtime compensation. He maintained an online presence with 3,500 followers who enjoyed his photographs of remote construction sites. The project involved constructing a logging access road through pristine forest that served as a wildlife corridor. Ford's morning safety log documented fresh bear tracks crossing the construction alignment, evidence of established travel routes that his work was intersecting. The area showed extensive wildlife activity, with claw marks on trees and well-worn game trails. Ford worked as part of a two-man crew with equipment operator David Morrison, 38, though their assignments kept them at different sections of the road project. Morrison operated a grader 2 miles down the access route, while Ford handled the initial clearing work. They maintained radio contact throughout the day, checking in every 2 hours as company protocol required. Recent wildlife advisories had warned construction crews about increased bear activity during the late summer feeding season. Grizzly bears rank among North America's most formidable predators, with adult males typically weighing 400 to 600 pounds, though exceptionally large individuals can exceed that range. These apex predators possess incredible strength and can run at speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour. During late summer, grizzlies enter hyperphagia, consuming up to 20,000 calories daily to prepare for winter hibernation. This biological drive makes them highly focused on food sources and more likely to react aggressively when surprised. Ford had been operating his bulldozer for hours, clearing the new road where several long-established game trails crossed the alignment. During an afternoon maintenance break, he shut down the engine and stepped out to inspect the blade. Morrison later noticed the sudden silence but assumed equipment issues when Ford missed a radio check. Meanwhile, a grizzly moving along its usual wildlife corridor entered the freshly cleared zone. Following scent trails through the disrupted forest edge, Ford knelt beside the bulldozer's blade, focused on inspecting the metal edges and unable to see the forest behind him. With the engine shut down, the area had grown quiet. A grizzly emerged from the tree line 40 feet away, its approach concealed until Ford looked up and saw the animal at close range. He pushed himself upright and began backing toward the cab, a sudden movement that triggered a defensive charge. The bear closed the distance almost immediately. The impact drove Ford forward across loose soil and branches, his hands scraping exposed root as he tried to stabilize himself. The grizzly delivered rapid bites to his upper torso and shoulder, while its forelimbs raked across his clothing, leaving deep, parallel lacerations. Ford attempted short, defensive movements, shifting his weight, bracing against the blade, reaching toward the cab-mounted bear spray. But a forepaw strike knocked it from reach. The accumulating trauma quickly overwhelmed him, leaving a clear pattern of disturbed ground and scattered equipment. By late afternoon, Morrison had attempted 3 radio contacts with no response. Company policy required immediate investigation of missed communications in bear country. Morrison shut down his grader and drove toward Ford's worksite. Morrison arrived to find the bulldozer sitting idle. Ford's hard hat lay 20 feet from the machine, and Morrison immediately noticed disturbed ground around the work area. Ford lay near fallen trees with torn clothing, deep bite punctures and claw lacerations. Blood and disturbed ground across a wide area showed he had moved during the struggle. Morrison immediately radioed for emergency services and his supervisor, then secured the scene from his vehicle. The remote location meant emergency responders required nearly 2 hours to reach the site. Investigation revealed extensive bear sign throughout the work area, including well-worn trails that the road construction had intersected. Ford was confirmed deceased at the scene from multiple traumatic injuries consistent with a grizzly attack. Hair samples from the bulldozer's undercarriage confirmed an adult grizzly's involvement, and Ford's bear spray was found in the bulldozer cab, unused. The company immediately evacuated all crews from the forest district and brought in wildlife specialists to assess bear activity patterns. The incident prompted a complete overhaul of remote work protocols, requiring GPS tracking devices and emergency beacons for all equipment operators in predator habitat. Morrison struggled with survivor's guilt, questioning whether earlier intervention might have changed the outcome. The company provided counseling support, while Ford's family requested privacy during their grieving process. As wildlife officers worked to establish new safety corridors for construction crews, the episode shifts north to a remote island campsite in Manitoba. It was August 22, 2019, in the remote boreal forests of northern Manitoba, where backcountry canoe routes wind through interconnected lakes, accessible only by water. Late summer marked peak berry season and intensified wildlife movement as bears prepared for winter, heightening the potential for encounters with travelers. Beatrix Finch, 31, had recently shifted from agency work to freelance travel writing, maintaining a modest wilderness blog with 4,100 followers. Her companion, Mark Ferrer, 28, was a wildlife photographer familiar with northern ecosystems and trained extensively in polar bear protocols from previous work in Churchill. The pair selected a 3-day canoe loop passing through pristine boreal habitat known for late summer bear activity. Local outfitters required strict Arctic safety procedures, including electric fence perimeters for extended camps. Their island campsite showed clear wildlife use. Broad tracks in wet shoreline and stripped blueberry bushes indicated active foraging. Guides had reported that unstable Hudson Bay ice had forced polar bears inland earlier and longer than usual, increasing predatory investigation behavior across regional waterways. Polar bears displaced inland by late melting ice present distinct risks. These large predators, typically 600 to 900 pounds in transitional habitats, often travel long distances along lake systems and investigate campsites with persistent, food-motivated curiosity. Finch and Ferrer established camp according to protocol, erecting the electric fence around tents and clustering cooking equipment downwind. As the evening settled, Ferrer photographed the lake, while Finch prepared meals inside the fenced zone. Cooking odors traveled across calm water, carried by shifting wind. A large male polar bear detected the scent, approached from the mainland shoreline, and entered the water. Ferrer observed the bear swimming toward the island while reviewing his photos and alerted Finch, prompting immediate implementation of safety procedures. Finch activated the fence alarm, which triggered briefly but cut off where the lower wire sagged over uneven ground. The polar bear made landfall and tested the energized section of wire with a paw, retreating momentarily from the shock. After circling the perimeter, the animal located the low, slack strand and stepped through without breaking it. Finch and Ferrer deployed bear spray toward the breach point, creating a drifting chemical cloud that caused the bear to turn its head and blink repeatedly. The deterrence slowed the animal, but did not stop its advance. The bear resumed its approach once the airborne spray dispersed in the light wind. Ferrer positioned himself between Finch and the advancing bear while she activated their satellite beacon. He discharged another close-range burst of spray directly into the bear's face. The reaction was brief: head shake, recoil, and a pause before the bear re-engaged and charged decisively. The impact drove Ferrer backward onto the rocky shoreline. The bear clamped onto his upper arm and torso, inflicting deep but non-arterial lacerations before releasing him to reassess its surroundings. Finch fired a marine flare at close range. The burning projectile struck the bear's shoulder fur and caused a short disengagement, but the animal remained fixated on the campsite. The polar bear redirected toward Finch as she moved toward their overturned canoe for cover. Her barrier proved insufficient. The bear's jaws closed across her upper chest and neck, exerting crushing force consistent with predatory attack behavior, resulting in catastrophic trauma. The animal maintained pressure until Finch ceased movement. Ferrer regained partial consciousness after the bear departed the island and began swimming back toward the mainland. Using their trauma kit, he applied compression dressings to control bleeding and maintained activation of the beacon. His wounds, while extensive, had spared major vessels, allowing him to remain conscious intermittently. A rescue helicopter reached the island 4 hours later, guided by the locator signal. Ferrer was airlifted to Winnipeg in critical condition. Finch was pronounced deceased at the scene from severe crushing injuries to the thorax and neck. Investigation confirmed the bear had been previously tagged by wildlife officials and displayed human habituation patterns. Extended inland displacement due to unstable Hudson Bay ice had increased predatory investigative behavior across the region. Ferrer's account, photographs, and gear provided valuable documentation that contributed to updated safety protocols for polar bear transitional habitats. Finch's family later established a wilderness education foundation focused on northern travel safety and shifting wildlife patterns. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.